Even the well-run teams like the Colts need a speed receiver. The Chiefs need an interior offensive lineman or a tackle. Everybody's drafting for need except Tampa. They're just drafting for depth. Literally, people are like, they're going to take an interior defensive lineman. Well, they have Ndamukong Suh. Well, they need a linebacker in case Levante David doesn't sign. Oh, wait, he did. Well, outside pass rusher. Oh, Shaq Barrett signed too. And Donovan Smith. If you go back to the 2007 Patriots, that Randy Moss team that went undefeated, they had 8 Pro Bowlers, 3 on the offensive line. Now, they had Randy Moss, but that wide receiving core is not close to Tampa's. They had Mike Vrabel, but that linebacking core in New England is not close to as athletic as Tampa's. Well, they had Vince Wilfork. They did. But this defensive line is far greater as a unit than that defensive line. The only area that New England team is better than the Tampa team is offensive line, and I would make a strong argument that the offensive line for Tampa in the last 2 months was unbelievable. Ali Marpet is a top 3 guard in the league. Ryan Jensen's a top 6 to 7 center. Tristan Wirf's right tackle looks like a Pro Bowler. That's the weak spot of Tampa. This is the best team Tom Brady's ever played on. They are literally drafting for depth. And don't forget this. They got really good after the bye. And I kind of look at Tampa as 2 seasons. There was the Tom gets signed, no preseason, a lot of turbulence, kind of trying to fit Arians' offense with Brady's offense. And we all watched it on television. It was bumpy. They got crushed by the Saints twice. They got beat by the Bears. They're yelling at each other. It's a lot of ugliness. Then the bye hit. They got 10 days of practice. They sewed it together. And from that point on, 8-0, and the average score was 34-19, and it was the number 1 offense in the NFL. They are literally drafting for depth. That is it. So that bye was like their preseason. It's incredible right now. Their sack differential after the bye was number 1. Their wins were number 1. Their points were number 1. Their point differential was number 1. Their turnover differential was number 2. That's the team coming back for preseason next year. That's the team entering this season. This team is so stacked. And I will say this. The other break they get is the Saints will be worse. Drew Brees is gone. They had to shave Cap. Green Bay could not take their Pro Bowl center, could not get him or J.J. Watt. Probably not quite as good on the offensive line. They do a good job in Green Bay to develop offensive lines, but probably won't be as good as when you lose the best center in the game or the second best center. You're probably not going to be as good. Seattle's been noisy as heck. Dallas still can't figure out their defense. I mean, this is the best team they've ever been on. They're going to re-sign Ndamukong Suh. And Donovan Smith got $31 million. They are completely stacked. I mean, the weakness on this team last year was offensive line. It was dominant in the end of the year, and secondary, mostly because it was young. Also, this is a franchise that drafts incredibly well, so you might as well put 3 or 4 more really talented guys on this roster. Wow. Zion Williamson's going crazy. We love that. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Today is Wednesday, heard brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs. Be a sub above. God, looks like Brady, Tampa Bay got everybody signed. Ndamukong Suh is going to sign. Donovan Smith just signed. Everybody. It is amazing about how the cap works. Chicago doesn't pay their quarterback anything, and they had to let go of their best corner. Tampa, we have an all-star team. Bring them all in.
People that know how to manipulate that cap there can't be many of them, because it's certain teams that seem to figure this out every single year.
Saints.
And you're like, we all are working with the same numbers, right? Like the Rams, you guys all have to use the same numbers. How do you guys have all these players and nobody else? Some teams can't sign another extension. It's wild.
Green Bay couldn't keep a Pro Bowl center.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they only pay like 2 guys. It's amazing. And one of those guys is Aaron Rodgers. So I am a big believer in fit. Okay, so Joy and I have bounced around in our careers a lot. And one of the reasons I came to Fox, I thought it was a better fit for me than ESPN. ESPN was very corporate, very Disney, very Lion King, very safe. And I'm kind of a letter rip guy and big opinions, and I have a lot of things I'm doing on the side. And Fox is like, yeah, do your stuff, whatever you want to do, start companies, whatever. And I just thought it was a better fit. Doesn't mean it's a better company, but I do think fit is really important. And I've always said, Aaron Rodgers is a weird fit in Green Bay. So Aaron Rodgers, last year, Green Bay drafts a quarterback in the first round. Translation, we're going to move on here pretty quick. Then Aaron comes out and crushes it, MVP numbers. Aaron's like, you love me, right? See, I'm good. No, we're still moving on. According to a story yesterday, Green Bay paid Rodgers a $7 million roster bonus. They did not convert it to a signing bonus. Colin, what does that mean? It's confusing. What it means is they can move off Aaron sooner. So they didn't convert it to a signing bonus, meaning they're looking to move off him pretty quick. Now, that sounds counterintuitive, right? Why would you move off? Never forget this. When Green Bay moved off Brett Favre, go look it up. He had just had his best year in a decade. He was a Pro Bowler. They were at 13-3. He got him to an NFC championship, and he was 6 months older than Aaron Rodgers is today. That was Brett Favre wasn't falling apart. He had just had a great year. They had just gone 13-3. He had just made the Pro Bowl. He had just cranked up a great year, and they moved off him. Why? Because they saw him as expensive and a star that was increasingly needy. That's kind of what Green Bay sees. It's funny how it lands. So Green Bay has always been about development. We all know this. This is not new. It's very small. It's the smallest sports town in America. It's got that Midwestern small town ethos. They're almost cynical about money and stardom. They're kind of cynical, right? Like when the Wisconsin Badgers hired, Bo Ryan, the basketball coach, they hired him from right down the road. And they didn't go for big stars. They had all the money. Wisconsin had all the money. If you go look at the history of Wisconsin football in the last 20 years, they make a ton of money. It's one of the most lucrative athletic departments in the country. They never hire a big star as a coach. They never do. They're cynical of the big money. Not that it's jaded. That's just the way Wisconsin is. They got their cheese. They got their Packers. We don't need outsiders. We're homegrown. We develop. It's Midwest. It's our ethos. And here's rock star Brett Favre and rock star Aaron Rodgers. So they draft Jordan Love, obviously. You don't draft a quarterback in the first round, not play him. I mean, just a total waste of draft pick. But it's funny how it lands. It's a weird fit between Aaron and the Packers. And if you read this story, basically, they don't want to offend Aaron, but they're structuring this contract to move off it sooner than later. And it's interesting how it lands. For Aaron Rodgers, whenever you get in an argument with your wife or your husband, the first thing a psychologist taught me this years ago, he said, well, just make sure it lands for her like it lands for you. You may have an argument. It doesn't necessarily land the same way. Arguments don't. So for Aaron Rodgers, here's how the current situation lands. You can't get many good players. For Green Bay, here's how it lands. Well, we would like to get you more, but you're too expensive, and you're getting older, and you're kind of needy. And both could be right. Aaron can't get more stars. That's why when they play Tampa this year and go 0-2, it looks like Tampa has far more good players. Brady takes a pay cut. That's why when they played San Francisco a couple years ago and Garoppolo wasn't making a fortune, it looked like San Francisco had way more good players. So how does it land? For Aaron Rodgers, this whole thing lands like, you can't get me more good players. You can't even keep my center. You couldn't keep Jared Cook. I can't get J.J. Watt. And for Green Bay, they look at it and think, dude, we're building this developmental roster, making fifth-rounders Pro Bowlers. We would love to get you more players, but you cost us almost $35 million a year. We're doing our part. You're not sacrificing. We're not going out and overspending and making it easy and getting free agents. We're not cherry-picking like the Giants, Adoree Jackson and Kenny Galladay, or like the Jets, Carl Lawson and Corey Davis. We don't do that. So we have to sacrifice in Green Bay. We are sacrificing Aaron all the time. It's a small town. This is our ethos. We have to draft and develop. And you, who are a big contract guy, are getting in our way. And so, I mean, it's Tom Brady's cap hit this year is $28 million less than Aaron Rodgers. That's why they have an all-star team. So this whole thing is very interesting to me, is that when they moved off Brett Favre, he had Aaron Rodgers He was 13-3. He was just turned 38. He was a Pro Bowler. He had his best year in a decade, just like Aaron did. And they just said, you're expensive and you're needy. And the whole thing in Green Bay is they look to develop. It's almost a college team. And they look like, well,